Hey everybody, we are going to be covering 5 things I wish I had known about Infernal Hordes. These are absolutely incredible. There's got to be some changes they make in future seasons because right now they are dominating what we do in Endgame. So you unlock them by doing the seasonal quest in 5, or if you're in Eternal Realm, there's a quest that shows up, and once you complete it, you get your first compass. You can then use that compass just like you use sigils for Nightmare Dungeons. You load it, and then it loads up on the map, and you can port right to it. Once you have that, it'll start dropping in Hell Tides in the chest, guaranteed. And then at the end of Nightmare Dungeons, it has a high chance of dropping. It is basically an event where you are loaded in, you kill a bunch of monsters. Depending on how fast you kill them, they load up events. They give you special things called Ether that are used to buy an open chest at the very end. Once you complete a number of rounds, it'll tell you in the top right corner how many. You will then be taken to a boss area. You'll kill the bosses. You'll get another large group of Ether, and then you'll get to choose from a series of chests. Depending on what tier level you choose, you can get higher and higher rewards or bigger and bigger guarantees of first greater fixes. You have gear. You also have materials that you need that are extremely valuable in the game, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then all of that gold. It is just a great, great ad. Now, later in this video, I'm also going to go and cover that, like how to make the best choices on those chests, how to clear the waves easier, and how to actually really target those bosses to get the most. So make sure you stay through this, but let's get more into the things I wish I would have known. Very first thing that was surprising is how insanely valuable these really truly are. They are some of the best things you can do starting in World Tier 3 as soon as you can open them to do everything that you need to do to make your character super powerful. The only thing they can't do is they can't give you glyph experience. That's the only thing. They can give you the materials for masterworking, experience, gold, items galore, materials for gems, for just generally upgrading your equipment. It is just a one-stop shop, and you get to choose based on what you need, how to focus it, and we'll talk about all of that. So the next thing was, well, how does it actually work? I get in there and monsters are thrown at me and the choices, but what is really going on here? What is the mechanic behind all of it? How do we understand it better? So as I started playing through a ton, what I realized is at the beginning, the events that are going to likely spawn when you kill a certain number of monsters are limited to 3. The first one is the etheric masses. Then those are things, little like pods in the middle that shoot fire out from them. There's the soul spires. They have a circle, and if you kill the monsters inside that, you get credit to lock down whatever is required for those. Once you get it, it explodes, and you get your ether, which is your rewards. Then there is elites. So there's little pods that spawn a elite monster or an ether fiend. When you complete these quests, you get little ether, or you get some ether. As you pick choices that make them more challenging, you can get even more ether for doing the same things. So at the base, you have these 3. But there is additional ones that you can add based on your choices that come up. The next is to add events of Hellborns being spawned. So Hellborns will actually appear and start targeting you. The other is Ether Lords. These are larger lords. They're kind of like when you're some of the challenging bosses in Helltide's, not like as hard as the Maiden, but the ones that will shoot fire and do lots of heavy mechanics. You know, they have the spiral of smoke and stuff, and then you like select the little guys that are hanging on the trees around the edges, and then it opens up a boss. It's like that level of boss. You can start summoning those. So now the event possibility is also one of these. And lastly, there's a little bonus one that allows you to actually bring up the Butcher, a Burning Butcher. Burning Butcher gives a big load of points. The Ether Lords and the Hellborns are some of the most rewarding as far as Ether goes in this game. And I'll talk to you about maximizing them in a little bit. So of all these, once you have opened up any of the extra ones or just doing the main ones, as you make choices that actually select or affect those directly, then they will show up more often in the map. So based on your choices, if you pick things that affect masses, you'll see more masses. If you pick things that affect the Hellborns, you'll see more Hellborns. You do for Hellborns, getting the extra, obviously you have to have them being summoned on a regular at first. So once you chose that option, now you'll get additional options for the Hellborn going forward. That can be adding an additional Hellborn and so on. So how do we maximize these? This was something that took a lot of trial and error. But the first thing I do want to cover before we go, hey, how do we get the max rewards, is how do we maximize survival? The way to play this, if you're picking the tier, when you first come in, you usually are being challenged a little bit. You don't know what's really going on. You're trying to figure it out. My first goal is to survive. If I survive, I make sure I get rewards. If I die during that, I get nothing. So I do want to make sure that even if I'm trying to push it and push to different tier levels, because they do open up higher and higher rewards, but the difficulty goes way up between tiers. I want to make sure that I can push that and still safely survive. So what choices I make if I'm trying to survive, I try to stay to just the original 3. Elites, I'll even get rid of if I'm really like, I know I shouldn't be here yet. But if you just put things into the masses, into the soul spires, and do nothing that will bring harder and harder monsters, or that'll speed up the amount of things that are thrown at you, will be a great add to just making sure that you're safe, that you can get through the rounds and get on to the next one. So then that naturally brought me to, okay, I'm surviving, but how do I get the most out of these? How do I maximize the value of the time? And it is totally down to the selections you make. Now, you can't control what selections are given to you, but knowing which ones are going to have the best effect on really maximizing rewards will give you a way to just ramp it like crazy. And seriously, like, making certain choices can double or triple the amount of rewards you get versus others. So if you're playing it safe, you're probably going to get a very low number, but you can triple that just by making some solid choices. So what's the first one? Hands down, of all the selections, the absolute best is the Summon Hellborn. This is absolutely the best to do. It is incredible. They are relatively easy to beat. They are not hard. They come in 2s. They both drop. And then after you've loaded one of these, you start getting options to then actually make them harder or add more, which just makes it even more valuable. This can get really out of control. There can be tons of these loading if you do it right, and they are the most rewarding for the cost. The next thing that pairs well with that is the Exalted Hordes. That's the choice you make. What this does is increases the damage done by all the little minion guys, but it also cuts in half the amount of monsters you have to kill in order to spawn an event. So when you're standing in the center, what they do is you kill a bunch of monsters, you spawn events either above you, below you, or to the left and right. So each corner of the room, kind of. And as you kill enough monsters, it randomly generates one there, and it'll show you this white circle, and then you can go over there, and once a flame shows up, whatever that you can actually do over there will be there. So either it's a masses or a boss or a Hellborn, something will be there to kill that you actually will get ether for, which will allow you then to trade in for great rewards. So if we are running Hellborns, and we're also running how fast these events happen, and this one, the Exalted Hordes, you can actually choose this one many times. So this is not one that once you've chosen it, then it's just the next level of stuff that you can add to it. This one, you can just keep stacking. So it'll get it'll go to 50%, then it'll go to 25%. So then events will be loading like crazy. Now, this is valuable if you are clearing fast enough. There was times where I just took a bunch of these and I couldn't clear fast enough yet. I was still figuring out my build, and all the things were spawning, but I couldn't do anything. So I wasn't getting extra rewards. It was actually just making it more chaotic, more likely for me to die. And so I would back off and just stay with maybe one of these or none of these and focus more on the Hellborns if I could. These first 2 options, though, are the key to. If you get these early, you are going to have a good run. They are the ones that add pretty much the most. Okay, so what do you do if those 2 are not available even early? The next thing I look for is going to be a thing called Summon Lords. That brings Ether Lords. Basically, anytime you bring more bosses, you usually do better. But Hellborn is significantly better than almost all the other ones. Next, you want to look for things. So if you don't have any boss options, you want to look for things that can speed up your clear. So that might be there is one that will slow you down but give you unlimited resource. If that works for your build, that's great. There's another thing that if you pick up Ether, at any point you speed up. You may look for those to start adding those to your selections, and that can help you clear faster, which is getting you more events. So even though they don't directly give you good things or they're not bringing the bosses, that's still a good choice. Now, one recommendation is the Soul Spires just seem to be crap. They just lock you in a place. I do not recommend them. They are a waste of time. You go into the circle and you have to wait for the monsters to come into it and then kill it. Everything else, you can go after it. So if you're getting your build more dialed in, you can clear and get way higher rewards. And that's what I recommend you do. So to make it super easy, I made this chart for you guys. These are my favorite options for ramping up on the left, and on the right is my favorite options for slowing it down. So what we're looking at here, as I mentioned, is the Summon Hellborn. That's perfect. Then the Exalted Hordes, that'll make the events load faster. After these 2, you can either take anything that benefits Hellborn, or the do another Exalted Horde. That just adds up really quick. Then doubling the elites. This one is way more beneficial even than the Lords, so do that one if you can find it. Then I push the Lords. Then I push the masses, the etheric mass. When they explode, they actually release a Lord, so I'm getting another Lord. And then just focus for anything that boosts the elites or the Lords after that, and you will do fine. If you have these options, especially the Hellborn and the Exalted Hordes, you are going to get a decent reward at the end as long as you're clearing. Now, on the survive side, obviously, we just want to slow it down and make sure it's not that big of a deal. The easiest things to clear and clear them fast, so you still get a decent reward, is going to be the etheric mass, just blowing those up. So I take all of those, all the things that would actually push those. And again, when you pick things that affect that one event, you get more of the event. Next, regrettably, I'm going to take the 2 things from the Soul Spires because they do just keep it very easy. So more Soul Spires isn't going to hurt you. It may not be the best reward. Again, those masses are going to be amazing. After that, start testing in or bringing in some of the elites benefits, because more elites actually do give you a decent amount of reward. And it's a good place to start ramping it up a little bit at the beginning and say, hey, let's test the waters before you jump on and start getting a ton of events and bring in those Hellborns. But let's go. How do you choose what tier to do? It's really the one you can do by doing the survival choices. So that's how I kind of pick. I'm ready to jump up and test myself on the based on the survival picks. But if the rewards drop, then I might just come back down a tier, because then I can just pick all the hardest options and maximize it and get more than I would have gotten going up a tier. Now, there is things that you give away at certain tiers. New chests will open up between 2 and 3. The rewards do seem to increase as you go. So there is reasons to push when you can. But if you are getting less rewards for it, it doesn't make any sense. So I go in, I pick survival method. As I get used to it, then I start picking harder and harder and start mixing it in. If I feel like a round was a little challenging, I will look for a survival choice rather than a ramp it up choice. So the next thing that I want to cover is a bonus, just to give you kind of an understanding of, well, how to go about it specifically in the battle itself. So when you're in waves, what should you be doing? How do you maximize even just where you are, what you're trying to focus on killing and taking down, as well as the bosses. And then we're going to jump into something that will help you pick the best chest for you. So first thing with the waves, when you start out, the whole idea is that you want to launch the events. Those are what give you ether. Those are launched by killing as many things as possible. So finding things that have large area effect and kind of standing as much in the middle so they all like center on you and you can wipe them. Depending on your build, obviously, you make the choices that keep you alive first. But if you can stand in the middle, have them come to you and kill them very fast, more events will load up. The faster you can kill, the more event. That's it. And that gets you more rewards. So even no matter what the choices are, this is a thing that will help you get more. So I stand in the middle, and then when I see that white circle that appears, it means an event's about to load there. And I run over to that circle and I eliminate whatever it is. If it's a boss, elite, Hellborns, I will move on and they'll chase me. So I can then go to a mass or to the spiral, or even if I don't want to do those. But if they show up, I'm trying to clear as many of those as I can. But with the Hellborn coming towards me and the bosses coming towards me and the elites coming towards me, it can get crazy. So just pay attention. But I am then also taking down another event while these are all coming to me. So it's just a mass of rewards very, very suddenly. So that's kind of strategy. And back in the center, kill as many as you can until an event spawns and keep going. Eventually, especially if you've done the options above where you're loading events faster, you'll just be running from event to event. You have like look on the mini map just to see where there is more red things to kill, so you can kill more and cause even another event to come. And that will keep speeding it up, and it can just get nuts, especially as your build gets crazy powerful. Okay, so now what do we do when we get into that final chamber with the bosses? I can admit I don't have 100% confirmation on it, but what I seem to notice is that if I target, especially when I'm pushing higher tiers, I seem to target and kill one boss and then pick on the next one and then the next one. They seem to get crazy powerful and more and more likely to one-shot me. So what I started doing is just focus on whichever one has the highest life. Do a lot of like taking that life down and then moving to the next one that has the highest life now, and keep moving them, trying to get that close to where I can finish them all off relatively quickly as soon as all of their lives are down. Now, not all the time is that necessary. Sometimes it's very easy just to wipe one very fast because you're getting crazy powerful for this tier. But just know that if you have to kind of take them down a bit at a time, just keep trying to kill them almost as close to each other as possible. And that will make it a lot easier to clear. So this brings me to my absolute favorite part of this, is that they give you the choice to choose what rewards you want for the time that you spent. And you can get a lot of them if you learn, as you learn the techniques that I mentioned above, the things that I had to learn by a lot of trial and error. As you maximize this, the rewards just go through the freaking roof. So you have a chest that's for equipment. You have at a certain tier, a chest in the middle that is more likely to drop greater affixes and eventually guarantees it as the tier level keeps going up. You have a materials, which includes the stuff for gems. It includes the stuff for materials to actually masterwork. And then you have the gold. My recommendation generally, if you're not targeting gear right now, then the materials is probably going to be most valuable. The chest in the middle, the greater fix, can only be opened once. So it's 60 right off the top to open that one. I take that one and then I choose materials and I open the material as much as possible. And this starts out of tier 3. Before that, I'll just put it in the gold. But as soon as they start giving me the materials to masterwork, I'm going to open as many of those as I can. And then whatever's left, I will then feed into gold. Now, why the choice part is so cool, if you want to come in here and you're just low on gold, you can put all of the points into gold. If you come in here and you don't have the gear you want yet, you're still looking for that final piece for your chest or for your helmet, whatever it is, you can just load into the gear and get a ton at once. One run of this in World Tier 4 and I was able to get all Ancestrals. I just did a tier that I could actually complete, and then I got to it and just load it into the equipment's chest. And that was absolutely incredible. So as I mentioned earlier, this is also the greatest place for leveling starting in World Tier 3. The mob density is insane. It's just really easy to get a ton of experience. You get great experience off of all the boss level things and the Hellborn. It's just nuts. If you are leveling in Diablo 4, make sure you do not miss my absolute favorite OP leveling tips.